All right, welcome to the PGA Daily Fantasy Flex podcast. I am here with my co-host as usual, Colin, Davy, and Peter Jennings, aka Sushi Ram, and we are here for another edition of the PGA show, talking the Wells Fargo Championship, which is a little different this week because it's at a different course, but exciting nonetheless. We had a break last week because the Zurich had the weird teammate different format, but excited to be back this week in talking Wells Fargo. Again, I'm joined by Colin and Pete. Pete, what's going on, man?
Oh, just a beautiful day here in Colorado. We got the NBA playoffs. The Rockets just embarrassed the Spurs, which was interesting to see. And,
wow.
Happy that golf's back. We kind of had a week off. We got Dustin Johnson back, so excited to chat golf.
Yeah, Colin, what's going on, man?
I watched a little bit, actually, of the Zurich last week. I mean, that ending on Sunday was pretty great with a chip out from wherever. I was just happy to see that the format was something resembling like my DGN, like prop betting, like normal weekends on the golf course. So do you guys like the new format from a fan perspective?
Yeah, no, I think it's really cool. And obviously the players showed up. I mean, the star players showed up. So obviously the players themselves like it. It's got to be fun. I mean, every week they're going out there and it's just so much pressure on yourself over and over and over again. It takes a lot of that off, I think, to have a partner and just, it's probably a lot more fun for the guys too. And I think that showed.
Yeah. And I think it was interesting to see, all else being equal, you'd guess something like Spieth Palmer be up there and win it to be the favorites for the event. And they were up there. But I think the best ball format really introduces a lot of it's variance for sure, given the pairings that it's a bunch of no names at the top. I guess my open question for this week in terms of what do we learn is what do you take away, if anything, from the best ball format if you watch people in form and stuff like that? It's kind of like match play where the results, the pure results don't carry over, but maybe you learn something from the eye test. I don't know. I start with my base assumption of carry over nothing from watching best ball. So, Pete, what are you taking away from just watching it? And how
you can pick up on certain guys' form, but I think it's something that is tougher. I actually prefer the match play even more than just the strict, if you're going to compare the best ball format, I think it's even more diluted than the match play because they're playing by themselves. So it's really hard to pick up anything unless you're seeing something like, oh, this guy was always driving in the fairway. His ball striking looked really good. Maybe you could translate that for the next week, but I think it's more diluted and less predictive than pretty much any result we have, but it's fun.
Yeah, that's about where I am too. It's just the fact that you're not truly penalized for your own misses in a lot of cases means that you can't really see kind of the domino effect of maybe if you hit a bad shot, when you're playing by yourself, that compounds the pressure on yourself, and some guys decompose, and that's something to look out for. So, like you said earlier, the fact that they're playing with less pressure is nice for them, but the fact is that pressure is part of your normal game when you're trying to predict outcomes during the regular DFS grind. So, I think carrying forward nothing is probably safer this week than trying to carry over something, all else being equal.
Yeah, I think it's fun to watch because we've all played best ball. That's people do it on the course, so it's definitely made it accessible to watch. I thought that was cool, but as far as taking away data points in the best ball format, you're probably going to be safer or more aggressive depending on your teammate. So it's probably not super applicable to this week in terms of data point, anything like that. But definitely fun to watch for sure. Let's dive into this tournament then. This is the Wells Fargo Championship. It is in North Carolina, usually in Charlotte at Quail Hollow Championship. But if you didn't know, Quail Hollow is the host of the PGA Championship, which is the last major of the year in August. So since they are getting their course ready for August for the major, they have moved the Wells Fargo to Eagle Point Golf Club, which is in Wilmington at the beach in North Carolina. So a different course is going to be a little challenging because we don't necessarily have as much data on that one compared to Quail Hollow, but we can look at the distance and stuff like that to figure out maybe what sort of golfers would set up well here, but definitely some uncertainty. Colin, I'll kick to you. What do you know about Eagle Point other than just sort of the distance?
I don't even know the distance from a strict technical standpoint. So the rule is when it's a brand new course and nothing has been played, is pretty much nothing. If I had to make an educated guess, it would probably be, I mean, it's a par 72. It looks kind of long, so I'd guess distance, but that's just like course fit and course history come up as big spanking zeros from a pure data perspective. So that's going to throw me off a little bit this week across the board, not only for how people are going to do, but for ownership as well, because most of the time we have a luxury of, people gravitate towards course history as, being useful for predicting ownership. So now it's kind of up in the air. I don't know, maybe tout recs get just like extra weight this year because everyone's in the same boat. But I would start with trying to figure out what's going on with this course. So, Pete, what do you have? Because I have exactly nothing here.
I mean, I don't have much. So, we're going off of some other stuff this week, more so than others. We're going to look a little more at long-term adjusted score. Right. We're going to look at stuff on current form. If you wanted to make a narrative street argument, we were talking about before, it's like the least predicted thing ever, but you could argue someone like Kisner this week's going to be really popular after chipping in. Whatever. There's a lot of things that we can take into account. I do think the predictive stuff is just going to be taking a look at long-term adjusted round, the guy that scores well, especially on DraftKings. We're really chasing the birdies. So, I still think there's price inefficiencies in certain spots, and we can hopefully identify those.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, there's uncertainty because we don't exactly know what the course is like as much as, we have data points on Quail Hollow and a lot of courses that, annually host tournaments. But, I mean, it's interesting because these players probably don't know about Eagle Point quite as much. So I'm curious, there's a couple players that stand out because they are North Carolina. They're from North Carolina, and they're actually members in Webb Simpson and Carl Peterson. Webb Simpson obviously being, the superior golfer of that duo. But, Simpson is from Raleigh, and he, is a member of Eagle Point, so he knows the course pretty well. So, Pete, we really don't have any course history, but are you willing to maybe weight that a little bit? If a course is completely unknown to a lot of people, one dude who is already, pretty good at golf, knowing the course really well seems to be at least a little bit of a nice edge.
Oh yeah. No, I'm buying this one hard. I'm curious Colin's opinion, but if they're a member at a place and they're playing there consistently, that's where they're still, going. Obviously he's a native, so his game's also trending well right now. I think he's certainly someone that people are going to be wanting to roster here. PGA Tour said he's the unofficial ambassador for Eagle Point. So I think there's definitely value in that, especially since this is a course we don't have any history on. So I think he gets a bump. The interesting thing is, his price is so high. So it's factored in a lot. I think this is no, secret that this is his spot. So he's I believe he's like the 7th or 8th highest priced golfer. So, Colin, what do you think? I mean, I'm buying that there's a big advantage, but it looks like it's partially priced in already.
Yeah, I think that what makes it more interesting is we've done the membership angle before with other golfers. And in those cases, those are courses with some history to it. So even if players aren't members, a lot of them have experience, and you can still get other people who are members with monster course fits. Here, it's a different angle, and that definitely explains his 9,700 because there's not much else I don't think, to justify that higher price tag.
Right. So
I would believe that it's definitely between 0 and a bump. It's not a penalty, so it's a bump for sure. I wonder how this week is going to play out in terms of recommendations, because I can see that being something that everybody keys in on enough to drive them over 20% ownership. I can absolutely see that happen because people are going to want to latch on to some sort of narrative because they don't have course fit. They don't have course history. I mean, I'm always looking for an ownership angle to fade. I can easily see that.
Yeah, you're going to convince yourself with Webb Simpson of the 2 missed cuts recently. Yeah.
His
price is high too.
Yeah, and he is down there. I mean, he is the lowest of all of the 90, the above 9Ks for me, it's because I don't have that membership thing priced in. So even if I bumped him a little bit,
I think it potentially is a pretty damn big bump though. That's a scenario, and that's why he's probably going to be owned. But let's say that if this guy's playing like 10 rounds plus there a year and has been playing there since he's a kid, like you see it, like there's clearly some advantages, and there's also the comfort angle. And I know he had the 2 missed cuts, but he's had some really good finishes this year. It feels like the putter was really bothering him for a while, and it seems like he's a little bit more comfortable. And obviously, he's one of the guys who came back from the long putter. So I can see why he's a good pick, but also if he's going to be heavily owned, he seems like a fade in tournaments for sure.
Yeah. So like, all right. So all that being it, like it's my favorite break even question. Like, how high would his ownership have to be for you to fade him? 21%.
Yeah. I probably don't want him at 20% or more. I don't know.
Yeah.
15%. I don't mind having some shares of him because I'll feel like a donkey if I don't play a strong narrative that I like. But I don't know. That's probably not the right. That's not GTO for.
Yeah, I think the like 20%. I could see him like. I want to see how the Rex play out this week from the tabs, but like if there are like 2 of them that recommend him, like I think he's going to crack 20%.
Yeah. And by the way, we'll have to talk more about it, but there are some guys, like if I feel like someone's going to be somewhat heavily owned, and I just think there's so much equity in them, I think you have to balance that out with a lot of contrarian plays. That's the interesting part about game theory with golf, because you can still have a very unique line with some chalky guys.
Yeah,
so you kind of have to take some stances on some of these high-end guys for sure.
Yeah, you can suppress your overall lineup ownership with contrarian plays to get it back and still like have a profitable lineup.
Right.
My entire worldview is that like nobody's that certain of an outcome with a golfer ever. Right. And like maybe if you're keyed in on something that like you have like strong convictions where you're like, no, this guy's gonna smash. If like I know it to my core, like that's fine. But like, what do you think is the bigger mistake? That people don't like follow that conviction enough, or they have wrong convictions about who's going to go off?
Oh, they definitely have wrong convictions.
It's the latter, like 9 times out of 10.
It's definitely the wrong convictions. And just to kind of transition, just on Simpson real quick, I do think the most popular golfer and the guy who's going to be the most heavily owned, I know it's tough, is going to be Kevin Kisner. I talked a little bit about it before. I mean, his form is just ridiculous, 8,400, and then he did have the chip out. People that watched that saw Kisner play incredible. So I definitely think he's going to be the most heavily owned. I do think Simpson and a lot of these guys at the top. We'll talk about the top end guys too, but I think Kisner's going to be the most heavily owned. Do you think it's going to be someone like Rahm or DJ, Colin?
I think it's going to be. I think Kisner's going to be top 5 for sure. Yeah. I think Rahm is going to be number 1.
And that's who I'm definitely going to have all day long.
And I think Paul Casey is actually going to be a close number 2.
Yeah, Casey's definitely interesting, but I'm taking conviction in Rahm. I think personally this week, he's the chalk that I think is so good. Like where do you think Rahm is right now in the world? Like if you had to rank the top golfers in the world, where do you have Rahm? Ready
for the hot take?
Well, let's hear it.
Number 2.
Yeah, behind DJ. I think that's pretty fair.
No,
I think Rory. I think it's DJ, Rory, then him, and then Spieth. Obviously, those 4 are in a class right now.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I have Rory, Rahm, and DJ, and I've talked about like why I'm a little bearish on DJ for sure, and why it's not pricing in.
Oh, you have Rory number 1. Gotcha.
Yeah, I have Rory number 1, and like I mean that's what I have. I'm not sure that like that's what I truly believe, but like that's like I mean. Internal numbers and all of that, it's because Rory hasn't missed a cut, but he's played very little, whereas DJ has like all missed cuts.
Rahm, I mean, we're starting to build a sample, but it's still a small sample relative to these other guys, which is interesting.
It's actually not that much. I mean, it's not that much smaller than someone like DJ who like doesn't play all these little events as opposed to Rahm. So like, I mean, it's enough of a sample for me to have conviction on Rahm.
All right. Well, that's how I feel. Yeah. I'm in on Rahm this week.
Yeah. We're not really disagreeing on anything at this point. Like Rahm is clearly top 5 for sure. It's just like quibbling over like slivers at this point.
Fair enough. All right. So the other elephant in the room, the 2 big ones this week is obviously Webb Simpson with this course angle, but also DJ is playing it obviously in his first tournament since the weird Masters injury where he fell down the stairs. Still unsure exactly the story there. Had to withdraw. Really burned a lot of people, but it seems at least that the betting public is not too concerned about any potential injuries or anything like that, because he is just the massive favorite in the field over guys like Rahm and Adam Scott, and there's some pretty solid golfers here. We have implied odds at 18.2%, so really just the massive chalk. He has 13K, which is really hard to build some lineups with him because of that high price point, which makes it interesting. So, Colin, you said that you thought he would be up here. That probably makes sense just looking at his Vegas odds. But, there is some uncertainty, no?
There is. You're talking about around the injury?
Yeah. Just like we haven't seen him play since that weird story came out.
Yeah, that's I remember we talked a little bit about it on Augusta, is it different? It's not the same as a nagging injury. It's like a freak accident injury.
Like, we don't know what the injury is, right?
Yeah, but by all accounts, it's it's a one-off.
He did say one thing on camera right when he withdrew. He said, I feel like I could even play in a couple days. That's what he said. That's what he said at the time. I don't know how much. I haven't researched this extensively, but I do remember him saying that. So it's not a bad injury. Obviously, he's playing this week. It's not like he'd go out there and play if he didn't feel like he was ready. But it still is a question.
Yeah, absolutely. I am approaching this as though he is fully healed. From a data perspective, I don't really have a choice because the fact that he didn't even play and withdrew says that numbers have no idea that he was ever injured at this point.
Right.
So that's what the raw data is going to reflect.
Mm-hmm.
How close to that is reality versus does he get a little bit of a discount? I don't think he's a withdrawal risk at this point.
No.
I think this, just spidey senses, this leans towards treat it as though he was not injured.
He won his last 3 starts, Colin. That's why I'm surprised you have Rahm ahead of DJ.
Oh, yeah.
That seems pretty poor to me at this point.
Yeah, I get it. They're both close.
Let me just say that again. Winner of his last 3 starts.
And before that, it's not like he was
one of those is match play, which is why it's not priced in.
And he just destroyed everyone in match play. Just destroyed them. He was winning effortlessly.
If we could somehow transmute match play into actual results, DJ would probably be number 1.
Too hot of a take to put Rahm ahead of DJ.
Yeah. I agree.
So I think the issue with DJ is not that he's a withdrawal risk. It's that if this injury does bother him at all and causes him to play a little bit poorly, at the 13K price tag, Pete, in tournaments at least, I can understand in cash games because of just the talent and safety that he brings. But in tournaments at 13K, he has to win the tournament for him to really pay it off, or at least get, top, 3 at least. So I guess that's the concern, is that the injury could wear on him over 4 days of play. And, if he doesn't get top 3, then you're probably not going to win a GPP in your lineup.
He can still make eagles and get bailed out with a hole-in-one. That's the one tilting thing. Is the hole-in-one is great, but it just that can skew a whole tournament, obviously.
Right.
I do think that he's fine. I'm not too worried. If I thought if he was bothered at all from the injury, I don't think he comes out and plays at all. I just think what's his incentive to do it? He's totally fine. So I do think that he's probably the top choice overall. I think it's really close between him and Rahm. From an equity standpoint, I love the savings you're getting with Rahm, so I feel really good about that. But in tournaments, you just have to kind of take a stance on some of these guys. All these top-end guys, DJ, Mickelson, Scott, Rahm, Casey, etc., those guys, Webb Simpson even, those guys are all going to carry heavy ownership. So kind of have to pick the ones you feel the most comfortable with.
Yeah, and I actually don't necessarily think that it's the paradigm of DJ has to get top 3 in order for it to be worth it. I think that we haven't seen, correct me if I'm wrong, a 13K price all year, right? So this is kind of new territory. I think this leans in the spot where this is almost where the price tag is almost you're what you're getting with that extra 2K over Rahm is less ownership. I think people will massively prefer Rahm over DJ because a 13K makes it really hard to pick other lineups. So I don't think you necessarily need DJ to pay off necessarily. I think you need to have, it depends on how much conviction you have over other lower ownership guys that you're going to be looking to price in elsewhere. There are a couple cheapo options that I think will have decently low ownership. But I don't think it depends on how DJ will do. I think it'll depend on how you think all of the lower price guys will be in terms of an equity.
Right, the roster construction you get with DJ.
Yeah. It depends on everybody else, not DJ.
Right. And his range of outcomes is so much more narrow anyways. So
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. All right, so let's talk about some potential, pivots away from DJ, Rom, Simpson. Colin, I'll start with you. Like, we're talking the top guys here, and then we'll move down and talk about some, the pivots away from Kisner if we think he's going to be popular, and some guys in the lower range to be able to fill out our lineups with DJ. But just staying at the top here just for 1 second, we have Phil at 10-2. We have Adam Scott, who, had the top 10 at the Masters last time he played. Seems to fit the course pretty well with his distance. And he's been pretty solid lately as far as accuracy goes, hitting greens. Paul Casey, Patrick Reed all the way up at 9-8. I mean, where are you looking to differentiate, or maybe are you trying to differentiate lower in the group?
I mean, I'm always trying to differentiate lower, period. I don't like if I really want to stay like maybe sub 20% ownership with the top guys, I think Phil is probably the best bet for now. I mean, his ownership hasn't been super high lately, so there's like a little bit of a signal if people are off on him or off of him a little bit. As of now, I'd put Phil at like below 20% ownership, which is like all you can really hope for with a 10K guy. The other guy that's probably going to be really low in that range is probably Francesco Molinari.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I think if you want to go pure ownership above 9K, he's going to be the lowest owned by far. If you want to go distance, I mean, he is an accuracy guy, so there's probably an equity penalty that I'm not pricing in here, but I still think like it's just still so low, or his ownership is still going to be so low. I think it's a much better low ownership play than, say, Patrick Reed, who I don't understand why he's all the way at 9,800. Does he have some, like, I mean, I know he played at Georgia or whatever, which is
dude,
like
he played the Ryder Cup, man. That's what's just, people love the Ryder Cup. He's been
that's the Ryder Cup bump right there. You think?
That's probably like one of the best moments in golf all of last. It probably was the best moment in golf. I know
yeah, not disagreeing, but like it was like
that
almost
sticks
like
with people. People think
think
he's one of the best in the world still, and he's definitely not.
I guess, but like I don't know.
What else would you explain the price and like some of the market stuff?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like I have no explanation. So like, all right, that's as good as any as I've heard. So let's go with that.
Just ownership. Yeah.
I heavily prefer Molinari over Reed if you just want to get like 9K with low ownership.
The guy who's going to be low owned, if you want to drop down a little bit more, who's kind of our boy in some regards, is Lucas Glover. Lucas Glover is going to be low owned because everyone's going to flock to Kisner in that price range. I like Berger too at 8,300. So those are going to be some popular guys in that range.
Yeah, I think Berger's going to be top 5 owned.
Yeah, well, back with Kisner, both him and Kisner and Berger are going to be very heavily owned.
Yes, I think Glover is a fantastic pivot for ownership in that price range.
Interesting. Okay.
Mid-tier. Let's transition into the high 7s, mid 8s. I think some guys will be chalk or JB Holmes, maybe Swafford, who I'm still upset with Swafford for just an epic choke at the Masters, just so devastating. But yeah, what do you guys think?
7-7 for Swafford seems really nice. And then you have like guys like, so who would be a pivot?
Young Han is maybe one of Colin's favorites.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
I want to dispute the chalk notion really quick. All right, like over under on Holmes ownership, Pete.
I don't think JB Holmes will be as chalky as some of the. I think maybe 15 on JB. I don't know. Just totally speculating.
It's close. Like I probably still take the under by a little bit, but I don't think him.
Would you take the over on 10?
I take the over on 10. Yeah, it's 10 to 15 sounds about right.
Okay.
I think the same for Swafford. I'd probably go like.
I hope Swafford's low owned.
I still think he's going to be low owned. I don't think there's been nothing recently for him to pop. But like, yeah, if we're going distance angle, I think Swafford is a great tournament play. I don't think enough people are going to be on him. Yeah. And we'll get to this case in a bit. Sorry, Bryan, what was your question?
Yeah, like who would be a pivot away from like Kisner and Berger? I was a little surprised that we thought Berger was going to be as high as Kisner, but is it like Ben On? Is that might be the pivot there?
Yeah, I think that like On definitely makes a good one. The other like it's pricier for sure, but the guy who's getting a lot of love before, but I don't think is going to be on this week is Pat Perez. You look at his that's one of my I've been waiting to fire him for a while. and his ownership was just way too high last week, like I thought it would be. But like, dude who's just like, look at the game log, and there's just like, it is the model of like good finishes, no missed cuts. I think the 8,900 is about the right price for him, but I think his ownership, and people are just going to be flocking to Kisner and Berger instead. I think like you can spend up, especially if you're not going DJ and you want some differentiation elsewhere. I think Perez, like I would take the under on 10% for him, and I think it's a great spot for low ownership.
Yeah, he hasn't missed a cut in so long. I mean, he's been just incredible. Definitely like Pat Perez. Think he's playing really great golf. And yeah, the best scenario to be contrarian probably. And I love this in football, and I should probably apply it more in golf. And I'm not good at it yet, but hopefully I'll get better. Is basically overpaying for a great golfer a little bit. Like that's a great way to be contrarian a lot of times, especially if there's a player that's going to soak up a lot of ownership in that same range. So I do like that. The 8,900 tag is certainly much more expensive than we're used to with Pat Perez. I mean, we're looking at him, he's consistently a 7K golfer. I mean, going back to last year, he was even in the 6K range. So, he's been 8,000, 8,100 a couple times, but 8,900 is a massive increase. So I think that will, obviously lower his ownership.
Yeah, we're getting the same effect to a lesser degree with DJ. I mean, like he'll probably be like only 20% or something like that with a high price tag, but like I could easily see. I mean, like if it's just one of those times where like it's not the 40% that we would get at Genesis. So yeah, I like the idea of overpaying for a good golfer because like you're basically straight buying low ownership, and golf is so random that like you can just like sprinkle your infield with other guys you just hope go off that are low owned.
Right.
Fair enough. So let's move just a little bit lower and talk about some guys we think might be popular. Obviously, if you roster DJ at 13K, you're going to have to get some cheaper guys in here. So let's talk about some guys we think might be a little chalky down here. I think a guy that stands out, even though he's missed a couple cuts, is maybe Luke List with the distance at 6'9". But Pete, like, who stands out in like the lower range?
Man,
you think might
stole
be
my guy. I mean, Luke List is currently in the lineup that
I think we're all on Luke List. I mean, that's like no secret of this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we keep playing the guy. I mean, the guy just destroys par fives too. So it's like there's a lot of merit. I mean, he's going to score well in DraftKings. I love playing him. I like Martin Laird a lot. I'm not sure he'll be super popular. He's a guy though I'm a little biased towards, so take it with he's a CSU guy, so I'm really biased. But yeah, this range, I mean, there's some guys that Colin's talked about before that I'm curious to see, like Stuart Sink. He's been calling him all year. I love him this week, 6,400. A little nervous he might be the chalk. Sung-Soo Pan.
I'm interrupting and saying I'm nervous that Stuart Sink is going to be the chalk. That's a sentence I would never expect to hear out loud in any format. So
dude, I'm nervous because I want to go all in.
I've
done it a couple of times and I'm always like, man, that was a great call. He missed a couple of heritage, but
he's never cracked 10%. Like all right. That's the only.
He gets like no time to. Like I swear, Stuart Sink gets like one highlight every like 5 tournaments he plays, and he's just going out there grinding.
Right, cuts. Exactly. It's my favorite under the radar thing ever. It's the greatest thing ever. Yeah. All right, that's the only one I could interrupt on. So continue.
No, I mean I just threw out. I mean, those are kind of the guys. I mean, List I thought was the most obvious one. Like just when I made a lineup, just looking through the prices, it's kind of what I do like Monday or whenever I post my games is just like look through and just pick in 5 minutes strictly off the names who seems too cheap. List immediately caught my eye. I'm like, 6,900. Yeah, I'll start with that guy.
Yeah.
So I think he's in play. Kokrak is another one that has some variance that at his price I think is interesting.
What about Varner at 6'3" if you're dipping all the way down?
Yeah, definitely. Depends too. Like if you knew this was an accuracy course, you could go to Ches Reavie, but I think I'm leaning distance right now. I'm going to try to learn a little bit more about that. But seeing all the par 5 opportunities, I definitely am looking at par 5 scoring for sure.
Yeah, I like Varner for sure. Other guys we haven't covered in this range. One guy I like the 1 week I went contrarian and paid off really well. Brian Harmon, I think, is someone that like he never gets any coverage. Canadian player. I guess the poor man's Adam Hadwin, if you just want to go the shoddy Canadian angle. I think he'll be under 10% for sure. And I definitely think he's in the top range of his field. Other guys, Shane Lowry is an interesting one for sure. He hasn't been on anybody's radar for a while, kind of doing some of your events.
People played him in the Masters a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess he was at the Masters for sure. I could see him being. I think he's going to be low on for sure. He's erratic for sure, but you need to take risk in tournaments no matter what. And then the other guy who I don't know, like all else being equal, I think he'd be sub 5 as Jason Kokrak. I know people do tout him a little bit, so I could see him getting like a bargain bid recommendation this week that'll bump his ownership a little bit. But as of now, I would take under 5%. And if you want to go distance, like it definitely helps his case. So those are my favorite pivots for low ownership for sure.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys in this range. Smiley Kaufman, 6'7". Man, he's fallen off a cliff lately. Ooh, if you look at his missed cuts.
That wrist injury, he was trending so well, then he had the wrist injury, and he's just been bad.
Yeah.
It's got to be tough for him, too, because he's boys with Justin Thomas and Spieth, and all those guys are just, like, taking over the world.
He's so good, yeah.
He's just struggling to make the cut.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's pick some winners, boys, and then we'll get out of here. So, obviously, I can't remember who went first last time. First and second definitely has an edge with DJ and Rob, so it's going to be interesting to get third pick. You guys have any preferences?
I haven't gone last in a while, so I'll go last. It's fine.
All right.
You want to go first? You can go first, Brian.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'll take DJ. Sure.
Perfect. Rob.
Yeah.
All right.
Tough choice.
What's our cutoff for price range?
We'll go
anyone
above. Yeah, anyone, and then below 9.
Below 9. Okay. I'll go Phil for the next one, and then
you take Phil straight up over Casey.
It's close.
Okay.
But yeah, I can't really tell them apart. But yeah, I'll take Phil. I'll take Phil. That's fine. And I'll go Berger for the under 9.
Berger, I like it. You guys seem a little bearish on Scott this week. Is there any particular reason?
No, I like Scott. Doesn't that conversation?
I think it's an exactly neutral play. I think he's priced right. I think
Casey, Scott, and Mickelson are all priced
just right there.
Properly, right?
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of what it feels like to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
That's fair enough.
You're taking Berger. Yeah, I'll go ultra chalk and ride the wave Kevin Kisner, so then I can feel better about fading him maybe.
Yeah.
Man. All right. So I gotta just pick from a lot of not so great guys. I'll go JB. We'll just keep it chalky here.
Oh, you should have taken Pat Perez, bro.
Is he under 9?
Yeah.
I think he's a clear choice. I think Perez, Berger, and Kisner are all like the kind of the class of this range, just raw equity.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
Cool. All right. Well, we will end it there. Thank you guys for listening as always.